So you've probably heard of the Ozempic face. It's everywhere, and most people focus on the collagen loss and loss of fat padding around the face, which is absolutely amazing. But there's not so much of a conversation or any facial exercises to do with fascia, the actual building blocks underneath supporting the collagen and any fascia fat padding. So in today's video, we're going to do a couple of really gentle techniques to allow for space, for nutrients, oxygen and detoxification. Now, the fascia is a connective tissue throughout the whole of the system. It's a bit like a spider's web, if you like. And if this gets quite restricted, it can either stick to the bone, so you're actually almost like a dam, so you're not allowing for space and nutrients, oxygen and detoxification. But also you can get quite restricted. So today we're going to do a couple of really gentle techniques. So first things first, I like to sit down with my feet parallel, nice and straight, and you want to make sure your back is nice and straight as well, and that your head is nicely on top of your shoulders, so we're in alignment. This really does help with blood flow and oxygen to the neck and the head area. So then we're going to place our hands just to the side here first, and just take a couple of gentle belly breaths in through the nose for 4, out for 6, to again help with blood flow and circulation to the neck and the head area. Out for 6, and one last time, in for 4, and out for 6. Now I like to breathe through the nose rather than the mouth. So with our face here and our skin, we're going to apply a little bit of facial oil, so we've got a little bit of grip and glide when we're doing some very light fascia work. So applying just a little bit of facial oil. If you like, you can also use your favourite face serum or even a day cream. And then just gently applying all along the facial area. So first of all, let's start on the jawline area. So I'm taking my fingers, the pads of the fingers, thumb under the chin, fingers above, gently breathing in for 4 again. And as we breathe out, melting the fingers into the skin, the pads of the fingers. Now, if you do have long nails, you can always use your knuckles. And then just very, very slowly, a micro-fascia movement, just going backwards and forwards. Very, very light. Now, what we're doing here, again, we're unsticking what I call fascia glue, which can get stuck to the bone. So again, just for allowing for space and nutrients. And then working the opposite direction now as well, again, because the fascia is in lots of different directions. Now, it's a really good idea if you can do these looking in a mirror. It really does help. You can actually see what you're doing. And then just work a little bit further along. Thumb placed onto the jawline, fingers above, gently breathing in, breathing out, and melting the fingers into the skin, onto that mandible, the jawline area. And then just very gently going backwards and forwards, nice and light. Micro-fascia movement, and then side to side. So now let's work down by the mouth area where everything has to start drooping down. Let's lift everything up. So where the corners of the mouth are, about 1 centimetre away from there, and towards almost literally horizontal, we have a really good depressor muscle here. So again, just gently breathing in, breathing out, just very gently melt into the skin here. And then just coming backwards and forwards, releasing any tightness. And then side to side. And then the other point is really an amazing point. It's the what I call the nasal lift point, the great nasal lift point, either side of the nostrils. So again, taking our finger, placing our finger either side, gently breathing in and breathing out, melting into this point. This is a really great point for the lower part of the face, smile lines, marionette lines. Releasing any tightness here, and we get quite tight in this area. And then just working very, very lightly, micro-fascia movement, up and down, releasing any of that tight tension. Making sure the whole face is nice and relaxed, and the jaw is nice and relaxed as well, where we hold tension into the face. And then working in the opposite direction. Nice and gentle and calm. Now we're going to work on the cheek area here as well, where again you can get sort of collapse, and actually just again we just want to add some space from the bone to allow for more nutrients. So taking our fingers under where the cheekbone is, just slightly under, gently pressing. So breathing out. Now if you do have a tiny bit of redness, that's fine. That's just blood flow and circulation coming to the area. Making sure the shoulders are nice and relaxed. And then just working very micro-fascia movement backwards and forwards. If you find any pain, please sort of ease off on the pressure. Now, I'm not a doctor or a dietitian. I'm a qualified facialist for the last 8 years. So these are just very, very gentle exercises. And then work in the opposite direction. And then let's come to the temples here, gently placing the fingers, again breathing in. As you breathe out, just very gently melt the fingers into the temple area. And then a round circular motion one way. Again, we hold lots of tension in this area. Releasing any tight tension and relaxing the face, making sure the shoulders are nice and relaxed. And then working in the opposite direction. These are great ones, even if you haven't had any rapid weight loss. It's a really nice, relaxing, all over fascia work. And then we're going to take the pads of the fingers now and place them sort of around the forehead area. So I'm forgetting what I was saying then. And then just gently breathing in, and then just melting the fingers and the thumb around the forehead area. Again, we hold a lot of tension in this area, particularly if we're creasing our fingers up our forehead. And then just work backwards and forwards again, relaxing any tight tension. And then in the opposite direction. And if you like, you can work in round circular motions as well. And in the opposite direction. Again, we don't have so much fat padding here, so you may be slightly red afterwards. Again, blood flow soon fades. And then just taking the pads of the fingers, my favourite part where we do mess up the hair is if you can just place your fingers onto your scalp here, and then gently breathing in. And as we breathe out, melt the fingers onto the scalp area. You always tend to forget about the scalp. And if this is tight and restricted, this affects the whole of the face and the neck area. And then once the fingers are nicely, about a 40% pressure, let's just go backwards and forwards. Relaxing the face, lovely gentle belly breathing. Okay, this is a great one also if you have headaches or a bit heady. And then let's work in the opposite direction now. Yeah, this is such a great one to do. Again, we're releasing any tight fascia. Now you may find your scalp's not moving so freely, and if it isn't, it's usually because it's slightly more restricted. But over time, doing these very gentle fascia work will really help, after this decompression, to really help release. Let's just work a little bit further at the back of the head now, where we hold on to lots of tension, so get the pads of the fingers right in there. Gently breathing in, breathe out, and really melt the fingers into the scalp, onto the scalp. It's also a slightly good arm workout. And then just going backwards and forwards one way. Again, we hold a lot of tension here, really relaxing the neck and the shoulders. And tension in the face. And then work in the opposite direction. Being nice and relaxed. No tension in the face, particularly the jaw, where we tend to clench our teeth and hold on to that jaw. They're just working a round circular motion one way. And then in the opposite direction. So we've done some great fascia work on the jawline, around the lower part of the face, the forehead, and we've really released any tightness on the scalp area. So now we've created space for nutrients, oxygen, and detoxification now. Let's just do a little bit of lymphatic drainage so we can reduce and move any of toxins and waste into the rest of the body. So placing our hands, first of all, onto our forehead, and just very gently, feather light touch, move from the center of the forehead towards the temples. Going really nice and light. And what we're doing here is we're moving lymph, which is also very close to the surface of the skin. And then with the ring finger under the eye, outwards motion. And then from the jawline, lifting up and across. Further light touch. Outwards motion towards the ears. And then the thumb placed under the chin, fingers as a hook. Let's work our way all along the jawline towards the ears. So I can hear a puppy in the background playing with a toy. And then just taking our fingers now on the top of our scalp here. Again, we've moved, making things a little bit more free. So just very gently glide with your fingers in a downwards motion to the back of the ear area here. And towards the neck. Okay, just moving everything along. And then front of the fingers here with the pads of the fingers. And try to, for more surface area, sort of maximum finger length, if you like, and just gently glide down the front of the ears where we have plenty of lymph nodes, and then behind the ears where we have plenty of lymph nodes. Again, I always want to swallow. Literally, you do feel things moving along when you're doing this, even though it's very fine and delicate. And then just massaging now the bottom of the occipital bone, so all along the neck, bottom of the head, top of the neck. And then when the fingers are touching, just very gently glide down that big SCM muscle down to the collarbone one way, and then on the other side. And then from the chin all the way down where our collarbone is, just above, we've got some indentations. And if you can take the pads of the fingers and first of all just give those a few gentle presses. This will release all the toxins and waste we've moved within the facial and the scalp area into the body, ready for elimination. Now afterwards, I'd recommend a glass of lukewarm water to hydrate the fascia, but also to help with detoxification as well. Please comment down below, tell me how you found this today. It's a really nice relaxing fascia work, nice and gentle. And again, please consider subscribing, liking and sharing, and I really look forward to seeing you in the next video. Okay, bye.